So welcome to the Node.js NAPI team meeting for July 6, 2020. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the milestone 11 issues. Let me pull that up and share. But I guess before I get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Yeah, I was going to mention that Node SQLite 5.0 landed Simver Major with NAPI support. So as people start adopting that Simver Major, we should see an increased use in NAPI.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great news that that's happened.
And no issues filed yet, so we'll see. Fingers
Keep
crossed.
our fingers crossed. Yeah. I think also there was a release that went out last week. Nicola?
Yeah, I made the release 2.0.2. Yeah, it's in npm now.
Okay.
This release contains all works that we made on Object Wrap API, yeah, for the most part, it's all work that Gabriel and Anna did on this API. And yeah, we can close this issue.
Perfect. Okay. I guess we should, related to that, we should think about when it would make sense to do the next 3.x release. We should probably just think about that because last time we might have waited a little bit too long.
Yeah, and now I don't know, maybe we released 3 months ago, if I'm not wrong.
Right. So if that's let's just take a look. GitHub.
Yeah. If you go on release, yeah, on the right, on your right. No, yeah, down, right down.
Down.
On your right.
Sorry, yeah. Oh, really? There we go. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was blind.
So the release 3 is happen in April. So May, June. Okay, so it's almost 3 months, and
yeah, I think we should probably do another one, right? I'll just next 3.x release. It's been 2.5 months. We should review the changes to see if we. So we should see, like, if there's nothing that we think is important enough, maybe we won't. But otherwise, you know, I think if there's any substantial changes, it's probably time to do one.
Okay.
Oops, and I just did this. Okay, so
you need to link this on a bstable. No.
Yeah, right. So here. Okay, and then I can put it in our milestone here. Okay, that sounds good. So maybe we can take a look this week and come back next week and discuss whether we think it's time or not. But
oh, okay.
I mean, or even just discuss in that other issue that we opened, like we should take, you know, whoever gets the chance to take a look first can take a look and say, yeah, there's been some stuff, let's do one or whatever. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the issues that we've got tagged. We've just created one. The next one is NodeConf EU workshop proposal.
Yeah, so I have proposed text out here. Giving this some thought, I think we're going to need to know how they intend to offer the workshops remotely, and whether how we can make that work with our model. So I think what I need to do at this point is reach out to the conference and just see how they're going to do the workshops.
Okay.
Maybe they may be just doing pre-recorded workshops. So I think the real power of our workshop is offering hands-on help to people who are struggling or have questions. Right. So yeah, it would be good to know if there's a model that we could implement that would support that also. Otherwise, we could still go along. We could still go ahead with a workshop and just do a pre-recorded. What is the thinking of the group?
I think you're right about the value being available to help, right? Like, because if we've got the workshop, things that people can go through on their own, mm-hmm. What would we do in the pre-recording other than sort of an intro or something, right?
Exactly. It would be our intro, kind of orienting people, what we've always done.
Yeah.
Unless we want to rethink that in light of the new situation.
I think it's a good idea for you to reach out to them. I gotta think that they should have some interactive, like over Zoom, it shouldn't be that hard to have people at least available to ask questions and stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The ones I've seen they'll broadcast it and then they'll have a chat channel. So and then the presenter is available on the chat channel. So people might ask questions on the chat channel, and then the presenter can respond in real time as the video is playing, is what I've seen. Okay. But for us, it might be helpful if we had the ability to break out. So if somebody needed hands-on one-on-one help, that we could direct them, okay, go to this Zoom channel and an expert will be waiting for you.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard for us to just set up ad hoc Zooms to say, okay, like here's a link, you can share your screen.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly, Michael. So I think what I'll do is reach out to the conference and just see what they're thinking on workshops, and maybe engage them and say, okay, here's what we're thinking, and see if that'll fit into their model.
Right.
Because I think starting Zoom sessions is like a privilege that you need to pay for, right? So being able to break out like that means somebody has the rights to create new Zoom.
Any free Zoom account, right? can start Zoom sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have a free Zoom account, you can create Zoom sessions, and they are time unlimited if it's one-on-one. If you add
okay.
Yes, and the screen sharing works very, very well.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I think breaking out to individual Zoom sessions would be feasible.
Yeah. If yeah.
But my only comment on the description is I think we were going to hopefully move towards more of just like add-on development focus. Like maybe I'm just thinking like, let's maybe not talk about NAPI until later on, or.
Okay, Michael, could you clarify that?
Well, sort of like it'd be more like the workshop is on add-on development for Node.js, and like we'll take you through the key things you need to know and some key examples for what you will want to do when building a native add-on. So as opposed to saying NAPI add-ons, just say, you're building an add-on for Node. This workshop is going to help you understand that, right?
Yeah.
And then I like this. Sorry, go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we should embrace the fact that NAPI is becoming ubiquitous by not pointing out that it's an NAPI add-on, right?
Okay.
Just an add-on.
Okay.
And then sort of like, so even like we can close with this workshop offered by the experts from the NAPI team like might be the one place where we mention an API, right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yes.
So it's more of just like, hey, you want to write add-ons. Maybe it's even like, you know, a little bit around why you want to write add-ons.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got that middle paragraph has some of the key things about like context awareness, thread safe functions.
Right.
And then the last one can be just be, you know, this workshop is brought to you by the NAPI team or whatever. But
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Okay, so I'll rework
Yeah,
that.
I also think we should concentrate on like the latest developments, right, rather than just basics. Because I mean, we should, you know, we'll encounter the basics anyway, right? As we do the workshop.
right, like the intro should just maybe be, you know, and not too long, but like what's new on this front, and then the workshop takes people through from the basics all the way up to the end.
Yeah, the tutorials.
Yeah, because we don't need too much of an intro. Like some workshops don't have any. It's kind of like, okay, dive in. But I do think some intro is good because I've had feedback from people on different ones that like frame what some of it could be like just framing what you're going to learn in the different exercises and why they're important, right? But anyway, we can worry about that part once we get there.
Okay. I will work on this.
Thanks. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what the organizers have in mind, because I think something where you do the interactivity and can answer questions and help people is the important part.
Yeah.
Okay. Enable debug testing for add-ons. That's the next one.
Yeah.
So this one, I saw your comment. The only thing I wondered is, like, would we have caught the problems we needed to catch if Node wasn't compiled with debug?
Well, not the handle scope problem, but the handle scope issue showed itself in a lot of places anyway, right?
Okay,
because
so
I
it would
think that even happened in release. But the big question is, yeah, exactly. Like you said, if we need Node in debug mode as well, and ideally, I think we should have it, right? But that means that we would have to build Node as well as Node add-on API, right? And that's a rather large job. You know?
Yeah, it's a significantly bigger test load.
Yeah.
I guess the what we there is an issue somewhere that says our add-on tests in core should run in debug mode. That I think makes maybe that's what we want to do instead.
At least for starters, yeah. I mean, ideally, as far as I'm concerned, ideally we would have debug tarballs right along with the release tarballs, right? That would be ideal, but that's a huge undertaking, right?
Yeah.
So short of that, having, you know, if we do have a core CI job, that if we do end up having a core CI job that tests in debug mode, then it would be kind of wasteful to then throw away those binaries that have been built with debug symbols. You know, it would almost make sense to just store them somewhere so that we can use them downstream, right? And not have to rebuild them. But then again, that is also a sort of an infrastructural change. You know,
yeah, but those are in there. There's, you know, that would be new for every PR. Right.
Yes.
Right. So it's not like there's. I mean, it's the releases that we actually build as a here's a release, right? Versus.
Well, but I mean, we test master as well, right? So we run the CI on master.
Right. There are nightlies though, nightly builds. Like we have binaries across the different ones. If we're really going to do it, I think we'd change the release infrastructure to build binaries for debug as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
as opposed to trying to
big,
keep the ones from, which is pretty big, as opposed to trying to keep the other ones. Let me just find that issue. Where is it? Because there is one, I'm pretty sure. Why am I not
The only reason I'm thinking this is that I know that distributions, right? They have like debug info packages which you can install, and then you get all the debug signals, right? So, you know, they are doing this, but of course, you know, they are as upstream as it gets, I guess.
Yeah, I thought somewhere, actually, I mean, I think we may even have an issue here, but there's also an issue. Yeah, there's also one in core. I just can't find it right now, or there was one. Unless it's closed.
Not this.
I think that's where we should focus first anyway. Maybe it's this one. No. No. Okay. So I don't know that, but that's, I'll just say, I'll say I think since I can't find it. There is, we already run, like in the CI, we already do have at least one job build that does debug testing. I think it's just that our add-ons don't necessarily respect that or something.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Like if we look node test commit, we look at debug, right? No. No. Anyway, we'll have to look at that. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to try and get the debug testing in core for sure, because that should catch. Like, because these failures, were these problems in Node add-on API, or were they in the core NAPI?
I don't remember actually.
Okay, because that's where the, like, you know, the core testing will get us things that are in that are in NAPI, but they won't necessarily get us things that are in Node add-on API. We could potentially add a new job which just, say, on a single platform does the debug testing. That might make sense too.
Okay, how about this issue, Node.js build 1854? I think, I'm not sure if that's open
Maybe
or
that's where it
closed.
was.
Yeah.
Or can you paste that into the chat?
Yeah. Working on that. Okay, there you go. It was an issue Anna opened. I just saw the link.
Right. Yes,
from,
that's the one I was thinking of. Yes, I was looking in Node Core though instead of. Right. So I think that's. Right. Okay. So basically, it's run in one of the container builds. But the add-on tests aren't built in that mode, the debug mode. I don't know if that's an API specific or all add-ons, but
Yeah, we definitely need this. I think it keeps showing up.
Okay. Okay, so let's keep this on our list. I'm going to, it's tagged in our agenda. So if people have time to look at it, I think this would be the first thing we should look at is getting it enabled in core. Then following that, we could look at enabling a debug version where we build Node and the add-ons in debug mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's just say first step. So how about this, next steps? testing in debug. Create debug test for node. Yeah, in for single platform, well, I'm going to say Linux. And maybe, I mean, is that, do we think it's good enough just to run that on the latest?
The latest version of Node.
Right. Like if we run that, because right now today we run the DIN API tests, right?
Yeah.
And like if we do all the combinations, that'll add up to a lot more testing, which is not impossible, but like we only run the debug mode for regular Node on one platform. So I think that's okay. And then if we just do it, I don't know that we do that for, well, I guess we probably do it for like if we're doing a 10 or a 12, but I guess the job will probably be able to do it for older versions too.
Probably because it just checks out a different tag, right?
Yeah. Anyway, maybe I'll say consider edit. How about that?
Yep.
Okay, anything more we want to talk about on that one? No, okay. Let's check on the status of the Node SAS NAPI port.
Yep.
So
Don't know if
anything
anything's been
to
going on.
update or discuss on that one?
Yeah, I haven't checked recently, but let me do
Okay.
that quickly. Yeah, they've been pretty like status quo for a while now, unfortunately.
Okay.
Here it is, 2440. Come on. Nope. Status quo.
Okay.
Maybe I should ping them or something. Is this?
I guess, is it like they're working on it, or is it that they're just, it's not?
Well, they have a PR open, but I mean it has a accumulated conflicts since
Right.
November 8th, 2019. So it's
Okay.
pretty stale.
Right.
I just asked them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Transfer the NAPI tutorials into the OpenJS Foundation.
Yes, so I have been continuing my work on the Gatsby implementation, and I have been able to successfully publish the site on my fork using GitHub Pages. So we are now able to publish it on GitHub Pages.
Okay.
So my plan now is to do a PR onto our examples repo of the GitHub of the Gatsby directory, the directory that has all the Gatsby stuff in it, and then if there's not an objection from the group, I would like to publish it on the examples, on our examples repo.
Okay.
So the technique we use is we use the idea of a GitHub Pages branch. And this is an orphan branch. It's just a branch all by itself. It doesn't share anything with master at all. It's just a separate branch. And the tooling in Gatsby with just a single command line will build and publish the site to the GitHub Pages branch. And then that immediately becomes live as soon as that's done.
Okay.
So,
and that can just be set up then as a GitHub action, right?
Yes, yes. Now, there was one request to do search, and I looked at that exhaustively. And for somebody, I'm convinced at this point, for somebody who's familiar with Gatsby, it's not that difficult a task to put in there, but it requires an understanding of Gatsby, and that's just not what I'm able to do at this point. So what I'm thinking is get the site up, get it live without the search, and then maybe reach out to the Node.js dev group, which has 100 collaborators.
Yep.
And see if there's somebody there who could just throw it in for us. It's not for somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. The Node.js dev site does not have search.
Okay.
But the one thing we have is this idea that we can pull in live code into the pages, existing source code, and that might be of benefit to the other project, to the Node.js dev group. We can show them how to do that. So
Okay.
Anyway, that's my plan.
Okay, no, that sounds good. And like, was there, you know, how many Gatsby files are there? Is it like hundreds? Is it tens? Is it?
Okay, so on the source side, there's maybe 24 markdown files. That generates out to, oh, I don't know. Are you talking about the Gatsby site that gets generated, or the source that's necessary?
I was thinking the source stuff, right? Like, I'm more like, what are we going to need to review, understand?
I think it's going to be the markdown pages. I think that's all that people are going to really need to be focusing on. The rest should just be out there and just working.
Right, but is it like is it like 5 Gatsby plumbing files, or is it more than that, or?
Oh,
I'm just, you know, gut feel is.
Yeah. So are you asking about the Gatsby support files, or?
Yeah, well, you had to write some number of you had to create some number of files or configurations to get Gatsby to do the conversion. It's like,
okay.
It's like what did you, the parts that you had to work with?
Okay. So what I did is I adopted a theme that's focused on documentation. Okay. So that once you have that theme, then as long as you make markdown files that are compatible with that theme, then there's really not that much work to do. The work that I did is getting another Gatsby plugin that where you can specify a source file, and then it brings that source file into a code block. So that's the part I added, and you know, that was fiddling here, fiddling there, and until it was working. Okay. So day to day, I think at this point we'll just be focused on the markdown files.
Okay. In terms of the licenses for the plugin and the other pieces, are they all like MIT or something friendly like that? That's just the one thing we'll probably have to take a look at. Oh, we might have lost Jim or lost me, one of the two.
Oh, I think that is.
Okay. Okay, so we lost Jim. Hopefully he'll come back in. Oh, here he's back.
Huh.
Hello.
Hello.
That's weird. Did I just fall off?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so weird. Anyway, Michael, I will look at the licensing.
Okay, that's just the kind of thing, like if we're going to bring things or copies of things into the repo, we just got to make sure that they're compatible with the licenses from the foundation and all that.
Okay, very good.
Sounds good. Anything more on that before we move on to the other?
Nope.
Okay. Our next one is the tracking issue for modules we've noticed that are ported to an API. I see, Nick, you commented on a new one, implementation of WebAssembly code interfaces based on API.
Yeah, I passed it. I reported the link. It's a way to implement native add-on for sorry. They uses an API, the JavaScript part, no, to create a WebAssembly module.
Okay, that's interesting. I guess the other thing we can look at when we're here too is NPM. It's like usage is still going up. There's a bit of a dip. I don't know why. I don't know why you get up to like that and then there's a dip, but it's back up to 1.3 million, 1.4 million. So it's still looking like a good upward trend.
It depends on problems that maybe there are on native add-ons that people download. So sometimes there are many downloads of these native add-on. For example, Sharp, that is used a lot. And if an increment or decrement on download for this native add-on could impact on on this
Okay.
sometimes sometimes there are some errors on npm so
right.
Okay. Because sometimes these statistics are not realistic, that's not real, sorry, because it's the 50% of the download that we have, and you come back maybe 2-3 hours later, and all it's like you expect. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that's still doing well, I think. So that's good. Go back to, so now it's really burned down a list of issues in the node repo or opened by the module owners. Are there any in particular people want to talk about? Just look here to start with. See, this one's actually question about documenting. This one was, I think, just really asking for questions.
So about the documentation, no?
Yeah.
So he is asking for something like support for IDE. And what to do this, we need to document our code, and then create the documentation for from these
right.
Yeah, because I won't avoid to write documentation twice, because it's okay. So My opinion is that I could try to use what we have in our documentation and on the code, no? So essentially, I will just experiment trying to copy and paste this documentation.
But I'm not sure that that's what this is asking. Like, I think this might be asking, like, I've created a package. Is there any way to document what it exports? Right, like, I don't think it was asking about documenting Node.js API itself, but like, say the package exports 2 or 3 things. And that's a bit different. I mean, but it's the same as with any package that, you know, I don't know that there's things that automatically tell you what the exports functions are, right?
Yeah. So we only export to function that print the include and the keep the dependencies. So
yeah, I guess I'm guessing they think more like, you know, on that in the init, you add things to the exports object, which are the things you call from JavaScript.
Yeah, this is weird because he calls out JS doc style comments.
Yeah.
But I think what he means is Doxygen, because
yeah,
that's the tooling for
I'm
C
not
and C++.
Sure, because like there are functions and classes exported by a package, right? That, you know, so basically,
yes,
you have an API in JavaScript that is what you actually use from the module.
correct.
The fact that C++ is actually doesn't matter to the JavaScript. So for the JavaScript user, what they probably want is some sort of JavaScript documentation of those methods.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a whole different thing to take. Like, you know, somehow it's not just, you'd almost like, and it's not even, wouldn't even be a 1-for-1. Like, I don't think you just document what the C++ method was. You know, there's some translation to what the API for you are on the JavaScript side.
That's right. Yes.
It's an interesting question. I don't think we have a good answer. I'm also not sure that it's like, it's not an easy, you know, if we could do something easily, maybe, but I'm not sure that it's going to be easy. And whether that's the thing that really slows people down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think today you'd have to just manually write what the documentation was, right?
I think so. I can't think of another way to do it.
Yeah, is there anything that, like, you know, some sort of tool would help you do it more effectively than just saying, yeah, here's what I actually put on my exports. Here are the parameters. And I suppose like there is, if we look at one of the examples, we just took one. Exports,
okay.
right?
No,
so like, this is, yeah,
man. Yeah, it's
only solution that could be create a wrapper of the function that you export and use JS doc to export.
right.
So yeah, or
Yeah, man.
I mean, so we could
Yeah.
maybe make some wrappers or something that would make that easier, but I'm not sure that it's that much easier than just, you know, like you said, writing the you're gonna have to pretty much maintain it manually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the automation is not easy because depends on what you implement on the native side.
Right. Actually,
And,
sorry, that was
so-
nappy. So let's. All right, and where is actually? My object, right, init.
So you, okay, one idea would be to put JS docs in here.
Right.
You could, that might be the best way to do it. Put JS docs with each C++ function. That would probably be the best approach, I would think. It would be kind of odd putting JS docs in a C file.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the IDE read the JS doc in the C++ file.
Exactly.
Probably
exactly.
Not. Probably
exactly.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the docs have to be presented from a JavaScript perspective, but the code is implemented in C.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if you provide the JS doc, probably the discrimination that the IDE use is the extension of the file and yeah, other things, but if you need to specify, for example, in Visual Studio Code, that file is a JASI file. So in that case, yeah, maybe the IDE could interpret like JavaScript, but it's not the ideal solution, the best solution for this.
I think our answer is we don't have a good answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Or we don't know of a, let me see, where is the, I can't get it back to the, oops, that's not the right thing. Yeah, unless somebody wants to spend some time looking at it. I think our answer is.
I think I would do that, Michael.
Okay.
It's kind of an interest of mine.
Okay, sounds good. If you can come up with any interesting ideas, or
yeah,
we'll just leave that one open for you to then just go take a look.
Okay.
Okay. We have a problem with callbacks. Okay, just asking for more info. Lifetime of deferred. I think Nicola, you've been talking back and forth on this one. I see Gabriel as well.
Yeah.
Anything to talk about that, or just continue in the issue?
Yeah, we need to, yeah, he asked to review his work, arbitrate, safe, deferred, and yeah, I could do this this week.
Okay, sounds good.
And then this, I opened an issue on Jest repo, but I didn't receive any response for now.
Okay. Okay, I think that's the right thing, because I took a look at it as well. I tried to convince myself that Jest was like somehow replacing the exceptions or whatever, but I couldn't prove that to myself. So, but that's still my guess, is that somehow they're monkey patching in. So
maybe what I discovered, but I need to investigate a lot, is that the prototype chain is different. If you use type error on on your own or with jest.
right.
So this could be a difference, and but I need to more investigation about this.
Right. Yeah, I think the originator had said they'd checked the prototype chain and it looked okay, but they're clearly, like under Jest, they seem to be different objects. Because I'd done some instrumentation that said, like, if you run under Jest, even using instance of told me they were different.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you run on your own, and if you run outside of Jest, it says, nope, these are the same, this is good. And like you tried out, if you run all the same checks that Jest does, it still looks fine. But under Jest, they're not the same object. Like instance of says, no, this is not an instance of the other one.
I suspect the same, right? Like just probably does some monkey patching, and type errors when running under Jest are not actually type errors.
Right.
You know, like JavaScript, and they don't expect that type errors can bypass their monkey patching, but with native you can, right?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I did a little, like I did some, printf type in instrumenting and couldn't prove that, but that's my guess.
Could be that Jest is written in TypeScript, and maybe I don't know.
Maybe that. I think when you open the issue, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we should do, because they should be able to answer that, like, very quickly, right? If you know Jest, you should know, yes, they tamper with them or they don't tamper with them or whatever, right? Whereas for us to try and figure out the same thing is probably going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll see what comes from that one. That was quite interesting, though. Make callback in object that file is removable. Okay, I guess we haven't seen too much that we did answer. There was no answer, so. Anyways, otherwise, it doesn't look like there's anything too new there. Any other ones that are on top of people's mind they want to talk about? This one looks like the only new node one. So this is one, Gabriel, you added, which was test for something that obviously gave us some grief at one point. So
yeah, we found I added these tests just because we should test all the branches, right? Just to increase the branch coverage. But when we added tests like these just spontaneously in the past, we did uncover bugs. I don't think this one uncovered any, but it's good to have these.
Yep. Oh no, it's good to have as much coverage as we can.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other issues or things we should talk about this week?
Well, I'd like one 749 in Node addon API. Trying to get folks to review that, and I had an idea about how to make that easier.
Okay. So let me see, Tom.
It's a pretty big PR. That's the problem. And it's also good to discuss the concept behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a pull request rate.
Yeah.
And you said 749. There we go. Okay,
But
right, that one. I had taken a quick look at it and I hadn't quite. Yeah, so if you give us the idea behind it, I think that would be quite helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So basically the idea is to turn an add-on into an instance of a C++ class, and then basically every add-on every instance of the add-on that Node.js loads on its various worker threads is an instance of a C++ class, and so that removes the need to have any global static data, because now you can just store them as instance variables in that class. And so, and every time you write a binding, that binding will, this in that binding will be the instance of the add-on. So you can just get your data using variables that are local to the instance. And so, but to avoid duplicating all the nappy function new and property descriptor and all that, I realized that object wrap already has all the methods and stuff that you need, right? Because it has like instance method, instance accessor, and instance value, right? And those methods, they receive a C++ object instance as their this, right? As their C++ this, not their JavaScript this,
yeah,
right? And so if you were to rip out all the instance instance accessor, instance method, and an instance value into its own class, then you can write a second subclass of it, one of which is object wrap, right? So object wrap becomes a subclass of this. I'm sorry, becomes a object wrap becomes a subclass of this new class, okay, to be specific. Yep. And so can add-on, right? And then you can say things like, my add-on, instance method, and then that's your binding, and you can do instance accessor, and all those end up decorating exports, or you can create your own and then send it back to Node, right? Just replace the exports on module. So then that's what this PR does. It basically rips apart the object wrap class and injects a new base class for it called instance wrap, which is also templated just like object wrap. And then it creates a subclass of instance wrap called addon, which is also templated the same way that object wrap is. And the only difference between object wrap and an add-on is that in object wrap, you unwrap the JavaScript this to retrieve the C++ instance before you call the C++ instance method, whereas in add-on you nappy get instance data to retrieve that same pointer, because that's stored on the environment, right, not on any JavaScript object.
Right.
And that's it. Other than that, you can reuse all the methods that object wrap used to have that are now in the superclass, so that you can reuse it in two different places. So that's the idea. The implication, of course, is that the bindings that you create this way are a little bit slower, because they not only have to nappy get CB info every time like normal bindings do, but they also have to nappy get instance data. So they're definitely going to be a little bit slower. But on the other hand, you get the ability to avoid global static data, and you also avoid the pitfall of having to call get instance data on the environment, because that runs the risk of you passing the wrong template parameter, because nappy get instance data requires a template parameter so that it knows what to cast the resulting pointer to, right? And if you accidentally pass the wrong class because you're lost in a myriad of C++ classes, then you get a seg fault, a very mysterious seg fault, and then you have to track that down. Whereas if you do it this way, it provides a nice clean abstraction, right? It's an instance of an add-on, and your init is just a factory. In fact, I wrote a macro where you just give it the class name, saying this is my add-on. This is the name of the class that represents my add-on, and it will instantiate it for you. And you can nicely and cleanly, like you do with define class in object wrap, there is define add-on for add-ons which do all the decorating for you. So that's the skinny on it, basically.
Okay, and
but
so
it's a pretty big. Sorry, go ahead.
You see this as like an addition, as opposed, like, would this replace the other ways of doing it completely?
No, it's not,
or this is like
it's completely. it is, I would say it should be the way forward if we wish to have context sensitivity and wish to have
Okay.
it with as little, with as few holes in our feet as possible.
Because if you're going to use
That's
context
basically,
sensitive, you have to do that second lookup in terms of performance anyway, right?
yes, and so basically we have several layers here, right? For
Yeah.
historical reasons, we have like nappy function new, right?
Yep.
And that will have you use get instance. You can still use get instance data, right?
Yep.
And retrieve that instance of your class,
Yep.
right? So it doesn't preclude that. Of course, if you do it that way, then you don't have access to the private stuff, right?
Mhm.
Which you can argue is good or bad or whatever, but I mean, you are in control of your add-on, so
Yep.
I don't know to what extent that matters, but it is an aspect that to consider. And then you can have object wrap and wrap some of your stuff, right? And I mean, you can solve it with object wrap by just having export one class and that's it, right? And then
Right.
everything you create is an instance of that. And so that may work, but add-ons don't necessarily follow that structure, right? And now you can do this where your entire add-on is an instance of an object, and then you
Mhm.
don't need to worry about correctly retrieving the instance data. It will do it for you in
Right.
your bindings.
Right.
So those are the different levels. There is one aspect which this doesn't cover, which is static methods in object wrap. If you have an object wrap that has like if you have a JavaScript class that has a static method that is backed by a native class using object wrap, then there is absolutely no way to avoid having that method be static on the C++ side, meaning that you have to get instance data and you have to cast to the right pointer yourself,
Right.
because the method is static, and so it will not receive a this no matter, or C++ this no matter what you do.
Right.
So that's the only thing this doesn't cover, this
Right.
new class.
And I guess it's exclusive. Like if you're doing object wrap, you wouldn't use this, right?
Well, I mean, nothing prevents you from using object wrap, and then just defining the resulting class constructor as one of the properties of your add-on, right? So if you scroll down a little bit, it says define add-on, right? You have instance method and you have instance value, right? So at instance value, it says subobject define properties nappy object new, and then decorate the nappy object new, right? But nothing prevents you from doing define class there instead of define properties, right? And then you just assign to the subobject, you assign the constructor that you get from your object wrap class, and expose that.
Doesn't it
So nothing
start to get
prevents you.
confusing though? Like, because this isn't in one case like if you're wrapping an object, you're like, I'm wondering if there's some, like you're saying in one case we unwrap the object itself, and the other case we're using the instance
we're basically
data, right?
unwrapping the environment, essentially.
Right.
We're unwrapping the environment, yeah.
Right,
So
but
the add-on,
isn't there?
the add-on class is for exposing bindings,
Right.
right? It's exposing bindings in a more structured fashion.
Okay, but that binding might be just like a constructor to create your, I guess what I was saying is the same methods wouldn't be in an add-on and in a wrapped object.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you have three classes you wish to expose, right?
Right.
Then you would call define class on the three different classes. You would take the resulting three JavaScript values, right? The functions that it creates, and you would say define add-on instance value this function, instance value that function, instance value that function, and you're done. And you're not really using this class at all, right? Because you're just defining three values which are that. But if you have functions, like you expose, export dot something, exports dot something else, and those are just plain functions, that you would benefit from declaring that using an instance method on the add-on rather than using nappy function new, because then inside nappy function new you have to retrieve the instance data yourself.
Right.
Whereas if you do it with instance method, you get that for free because they are instance methods of your C++ class. That's the benefit.
Yep. Okay.
So
and the only
you know, this would make
downside
it
is
super easy.
it always unwraps it for you, which is going to cost a little bit, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you would only do this. You can still say nappy function new, right? And then just pass in a static function, and you know, and then do an instance value if you don't need that. So you still have a way out if you don't need that unwrapped, and if it doesn't access anything inside the class,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
then you have that option. But if you're gonna call nappy get instance data anyway, then you might as well just make it an instance method with this change, you know, because you're gonna be paying that price anyway.
Right.
And then, you know, this way you avoid passing a template parameter to nappy get instance data, which may or may not be wrong.
Right.
So
okay.
yeah, that's the change.
Okay, well, it's good to have that context. That'll help.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the code change is basically like, you know, just moving stuff around. So that makes it really confusing, even though it doesn't need to be. So I was thinking to reduce the diff, I could restore the order in which these method implementations were declared, because I moved them around. Like, for example, this instance wrap t, right? It's basically just renaming object wrap t to instance wrap t, because now it's a method of a different class, right? But otherwise, the body of the method remains unchanged. You know, but because I moved it elsewhere in the code, it like blows up the diff. So, but of course, the flip side is if I move it back, then you'll have like instance wrap t and object wrap t methods interspersed, you know, and so that would make the code look ugly for at least one commit, and then I could do a second commit which cleans it up and moves all the instance wrap into one part of the file and all the object wrap into another part of the file. You know,
that might be helpful for reviewing, right? Like, because if it was basically like this commit simply moves code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay.
Then it would be like, okay, we're not even going to look at that code because we know it's just being copied. And the other one that's changing it. That those two, I think, would actually be quite helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll put the functions back in the order in which they were, and then that should reduce the diff, and then make it easier to review. And then yes, the code will be disorderly a little bit for like one commit, but it's not that big of a price to pay.
Yeah, like even just like in the PR, you can have the two commits, right? So it's like, okay, we can look at the first commit and say, okay, this is the renames, and then the second commit is the moves. So okay, I won't even bother looking.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And then the end change of the code is exactly the same.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. All right. Can do.
Okay.
All right. So
thanks.
I'll break it up into two then. Yep.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other ones we want to talk about? If not, let's call it for today. And thanks for everybody's time. And we'll talk to everybody next time.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.